Welcome to On the Move.
The Constitution gives us no rights. It is not a permission slip that grants us special privileges. It is simply a document that tells the shalls and shall nots of a government, of these people over here. It's a document that's based on common law and natural law. The basics of common law are that there can be no crime without intent. There can be no crime without action upon that intent. There can be no crime if there is no victim. Under common law, ignorance can be an excuse, unless the crime was so bad that you knew there is no excuse for it. Things like rape, theft, murder. Also, there could be no retroactive punishment. How can you have a just or stable society if they're punishing you for something under new laws that you did when they weren't illegal? Also, we have the right to a trial with jury of our peers. Now, I must admit this worked better in middle-aged England when the citizens didn't feel that, hey, our government just has our best interests at heart. They kind of stood up for each other. Along with this, we have the right of jury nullification. This means that not only do we judge the crime, but we have the right to judge whether it's a lawful law, whether that law should exist, and if the punishment fits the crime. Also, to judge whether that person was brought to the court properly, was due process served. And under the theory of natural law, it is that every person has property within himself. This is where our rights come from. A great expression of natural law was the Declaration of Independence, where it says there are self-evident truths. What are these self-evident truths? Well, all men are created equal. We have the right to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. Also, the right to be governed by consent. It's a theory of law that justice should have a negative effect on people or society. What do I mean by negative effect? Well, when you go to a doctor for a test of an illness, do you want that test to come back positive or negative? Well, this is the function of law. It's to negate anything that causes an infringement upon our personal liberties. But why does any of this matter? I must admit, for most of my life, I was politically apathetic. I didn't know why, but I knew there was something drastically wrong with politics. I knew it sucked. And I know I'm not alone in this. You look at elections, oftentimes only 30% of the population shows up. That means 70% of the population is a vote of, I like to call, of no confidence. They know there's something drastically wrong with politics and our politicians. You know, Murray Rothbard had said that true change only comes from education. Again, I'm going to say what other speakers have said before me. But let's look at the colonists. The colonists had studied Blackstone's commentaries on English law, which is common law. This was the most well-read book and sold book in the colonies. From the rich aristocrats down to the poor farmers, they knew their rights. They also studied the theories of natural law written by John Locke. And for me, when I learned these principles and these theories, it helped me articulate what was wrong, why politics sucked. And I think this is what Rothbard meant. Because only when people educate themselves, they can articulate what's wrong, they can speak out against it, and they can fight against it. But it's not going to be easy. The state doesn't like to give up easily. Their machinations, their propaganda, the statists who support them will do everything they can to stop you. There may be times that we feel discouraged, that we have no hope, that nothing matters. At times I feel that way. One time, several years ago, I was feeling like this, and my cousin related a story to me. He said he was stationed up here at Fort Lewis. They used to do a drill called Move Out and Draw Fire. He said it was a perfectly safe drill at Fort Lewis. But then he was deployed to Iraq, and they were in battle, and his commanding officer told him, hey, you need to move out and draw fire. He said the first thought that went through his head was, what? We really are going to do that? Those people are trying to kill us. But he did it because he knew the safety of his fellow soldiers depended upon it. He knew that if he didn't do it, somebody else would be sent, and that he couldn't live with himself if they died. This was a great encouragement to me, because I realized that the small minor difficulties I was facing paled in comparison to being in battle and physically getting shot at by your enemies. and became a mantra for me and my cousin. A motivation for us to stand up and do what was right, even when it was difficult. And I realized that history was full of people who had moved out and draw fire. One of my favorites is Rosa Parks. She didn't plan on doing what she was doing, but she knew instinctively that her common law and her natural law rights were being infringed upon. She didn't wait for politically connected judges or government to fix the problem. She just did what she thought was right. And in doing so, she facilitated a huge change for thousands, if not millions of people in this country. Now, I'm sure there's others who've suffered the same injustice Rosa Parks did and thought about doing things like that, but they didn't because they were afraid of the violent coercive force of government. They just wanted to go home to their families and be left alone. But what did she find out? She found out that Americans of all backgrounds were behind her. They did not approve of the immoral laws and these immoral politicians who were enforcing them. But let's not be misled. The courts and the government, they wouldn't have struck down these laws. They would have continued to enforce them. They only did so because we, the people, demanded a change. They deserve no credit at all. Thomas Jefferson had stated that the tendency of government is to grow to tyranny. And we can see that this is true. We see it on our federal level, on the state level here, right down to our local municipalities, no matter how small our town. And we can see that jurors are routinely dismissed for knowing about their rights to nullify laws. We see that our right to bear arms is under constant attack. Look at what's happening in Connecticut right now. Our freedom of speech is under attack. There's a constant assault on our labor and how we earn a living. Gangs of unconstitutional proactive police have created the standing army that the fathers warned us about would be the greatest threat to our liberties. We see that positive law has replaced natural law and our common law. And the only way to change these things is by being outraged, is by questioning so-called authority. It's by educating ourselves and others on the proper place of government. We are the masters. They are our servants. Article 1, Section 1 of our state constitution states this very clearly. It's based on common law and natural law. It says, all political power is inherent in the people, and governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed, and are established to protect and maintain individual rights. We must view it as an us versus them. Don't fall for the lies of the politicians that say, you can trust the government because you are the government. Because I can tell you, I'm not killing innocent children in other countries with drones. Are you? I'm not stealing money to give to people for things that you may find immoral or repugnant. I'm not throwing people in jail for personal vices. I'm not kicking in your door and shooting your kids, your pets, your loved ones with unconstitutional no-knock warrants. I'm not destroying liberty in a misguided allegiance to the state for illusion of safety. I'm not destroying liberty by pitting people against each other, creating a class system. You're left, you're right, you're black, you're white, you're gay, you're straight. No, we are all individuals that make up society. You know, these states had rebelled and they founded this union on the principles of common and natural law. Law was supposed to be a shield against tyrannical government. Unjust laws are no law at all. Unconstitutional laws are null and void. Just like the law that treated Rosa Parks as if somehow she was less human than the rest of her community. You know, in the beginning I mentioned that the Constitution gives us no rights. But I still respect the Constitution because it is supposed to be a restriction upon government. It is supposed to protect our liberties. And my favorite part of the Constitution is the Bill of Rights, which was insisted upon by the anti-federalists because they didn't trust the writers of the Constitution or government to remain within their enumerated powers. How rightfully so. Look what they haven't done it. But you notice how the politicians in the statists, they never mention the 9th Amendment. This alludes that our rights cannot be numbered. So we should ask ourselves, what are we doing to protect these rights? I say do something, do anything. Pick a fight and fight for it, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. If you can run for office, do that. If all you can do is slap a bumper sticker on the back of your car, do it. Demand respect from your politicians. They are not your leaders, because you are not property to be led about. You are not sheep to be led to your slaughter. Be prepared to move out and draw fire like the radical founding fathers, like Rosa Parks, like our brothers and sisters in Connecticut, who insist that their common law and natural rights be recognized. You know, sadly, my cousin had committed suicide not too long ago. At his funeral, I related my experience and the encouragement that I had gotten from him. My other cousin, his brother, who served in Iraq with him, said, "Do you know what the best part of move out and draw fire is?" And then he explained to me, it was knowing that everybody you were standing up for was going to wreak utter havoc upon anybody who dared tried to harm you. Can we do this for one another? Use our voices, use our protests, use our votes to wreak utter havoc upon politicians and their positive laws that are contrary to our legal founding of liberty, common law, and natural law. We must be willing not only to move out and draw fire, but take a stand for those willing to do so. Thank you.